Hey everybody, welcome back to another very exciting Adobe Live. I am here today with my amazing friend, Lisa Carney.
Hello, darling.
I am Jesús Ramirez. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're going to discuss Pro Creative Cloud workflows in the real world. What does that even mean, Lisa?
Oh my heavens, heavens. So I'm going to tell you, Jesus and I work together all the time, so we're uber familiar with each other. So if we seem a little catty, it's because we work together all the time, and we punt.
She yells at me all the time when I don't do the work properly.
Right.
She keeps me in a cage and then lets me out for food every now and again.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Yeah.
So hoping to discuss kind of real world workflow, how Jesus and I work together. And with AI coming out, things are changing, and they're changing really fast. So we're going to talk a lot about what our job world looks like, what kind of deliverables we have, and what kind of assist AI can give us, right?
Yeah.
So that'll be good. Do you mind showing my screen for a second?
Yeah, let's switch over to your screen.
Awesome. So if you weren't here for the last hour, my name is Lisa Carney, and I'm a finisher and a designer and a retoucher, primarily in the entertainment industry. And Jesus has been a godsend for me as a collaborative and collaborator.
Sure, collaborator.
Someone who I can throw some work at, and he can get it done and get it done fast.
Yeah, and we communicate really well, which is one of the things we're going to talk about today, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would say it's all about communication, don't you think?
For sure.
So here's the deal with entertainment work in particular, but God, I gotta say, almost any kind of job you have, real work, graphic, deliverables, it's no longer, I'm giving one image to somebody. No, they've got phone, they've got Instagram. Are they viewing Instagram on an iPad, or is it on a tablet? Is it on a TV screen? Is it print? So anymore now, when we have to do deliverables, they're huge. They're absolutely huge. And I'm going to tell you, generally, these are not planned out. And what do I mean by that? I mean, clients will come up with a concept or design or an idea, and they give you a tiny little vertical, perhaps, or a square. But in reality, you have to know, what is your buy? How many different buys or deliverables, as I'm going to keep saying, do we have to deliver? And most of that involves extension. So I think we're going to talk a lot about extension and coverage. And
I remember this.
do you remember that room?
I do
oh my
remember
God,
it.
you were a saving grace. So the shot I had for this was tiny, and the room wasn't even partially showing, hardly showing. There were no chairs in the front, whatever. And I reached out to Jesus, and I was like, can you build out this room for me? And look what you did. You did such an amazing job. And now with AI, that's going to get even better and more easy. Is that proper grammar?
Yeah, more easy.
More easy. Easy better. More better.
You won't need me anymore. You
That's right. You're fired. Oh, no. Can you imagine? So again, big extensions are needed, not just in the entertainment field, but in probably all kinds of work fields. So as you see this image here, you'll notice the original, very teeny tiny, but what has to be delivered is enormous. So hopefully we can talk a little bit about how we've done that and how we communicate with each other. I'd like to show you a little case study for that, if that's okay. So with Apple TV, you've got shows like Ghost Rider, which is really cool, fun show. And what most people in our, even my industry, if you're not a finisher, what they think is, a vertical and a horizontal, that's all you need. No.
You need all of that.
All of that. And so did the photographer shoot it? Probably not, because did the photography, I have to say, in our industry, unfortunately, there's a little bit of a communication disconnect, and often the photographers don't even realize, I need all of this. Welcome to the world of AI extension, hopefully. Hopefully, when it becomes legal. This took, I can't even tell you how many hours this took. This took 1,010 hours. So again, look at these big deliverables I have to do. What do you guys see? That's all you see, right? So we're talking behind the scenes sausage making, I think, right? Yeah, so hopefully you guys will find this interesting and useful. I do want to remind you, a lot with entertainment, you have different shots. So you have a body shot and a head shot, and then you have to combine them differently. So that's another consideration.
Head swaps.
We will not be talking about in this course, but at least you understand what we're looking at. So, workflow. Shall we talk workflow?
Let's talk workflow.
Okay. So first of all, it's how do you make your extensions, and what kind of extensions are you looking at? And with that, it's getting the assets. So where can you get assets? This, I have to be totally frank and honest, especially with the CSI, which we're going to show. Jesus is like the miracle worker of finding Adobe stock for extension. Like, I think you had this understanding of it, that I was so unaware of, because in my industry, generally, we're provided with shots, and then, oh, that's what you have, and if you don't have it, well, then you're hand painting.
Right.
Literally, hand cloning, painting, whatever. And then all of a sudden, Jesus is like, well, do you know there's this stock world that can actually build things? So I really want to emphasize that. And then, of course, GenFill extension and GenFill for assets. We're going to talk about how do we communicate with revisions, doing that. And then at the end, we're going to discuss social, pushing your work out on social.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of artists don't really do. Like, for example, you've done 1,000,001 things, and you have like 3 things on your profile. So I'm trying to get her to share everything, because if you shared only a quarter of what you did, people would be just amazed at the... Actually, here's a quick story. I was at your house approximately a month or 2 ago, and we were like, let's watch a movie. And we were flipping through, I think it was Netflix, and you were like, I made that poster. I made that poster. I made that. Like, seriously, like the 10 thumbnails that came up, you were like, I did that one. I did that one. I was like, you should be sharing this.
Anyway, so what do you do?
What do you do?
But you guys, as we're trying to educate the community, I think it's one of those things, it's a habit you learn straight away. So Jesus was talking about sharing and using Adobe Express to actually push stuff out. I thought, wow, had I learned that earlier, I would be so much better at it.
Well, the problem is that it's always been very time consuming. It still is to a degree, but with tools like Adobe Express, it makes it much easier, and it saves you time. And it's, after you mentioned 1 million hours on a poster, the last thing you want to do is spend another 2 hours creating social assets so you can share it for, to show that you're creating work and hopefully get more work out of it. So I think Adobe Express really helps you promote the work that you do.
Great. And then another point I'd like to point out that I feel like, and you correct me if I'm wrong, in this industry, in this world, we often think, oh, I'm just a Photoshop user, or I'm an Illustrator user, or I'm a Lightroom user. One or the other, and it's not or, it's and. And I will confess, I mentioned it in the last course, I suck at type. I super suck at type. Adobe Express handles that for me instantly, which I really super appreciate. Plus also the formatting, because the formatting changes, but Adobe Express is always updated, which is really brilliant. I do want to just take a second and talk about like doing a design pitch. So when you're doing design pitches, you have to do a bunch of different looks or feels or vibes, and getting assets and being able to do this quickly is really paramount in our industry.
Yeah, you have to be flexible and do everything modularized. So if you don't want this section, when you disable the group, there's still something behind it, or you got to be able to move things around.
Right. And I'll tell you, I don't have the stock shot of this, but when I did this design pitch for Diary of a Teenage Girl, and my poster actually got picked. It's the one on this one. Wait. That one. That's the one that got picked for the final poster, which I was very proud of. The AI fill now would have made that wallpaper in 2 seconds. Now I had to do it by hand. It took me hours. Literally took me hours. The AI would fill that in a second. And on the picture on the other side, that design paper, that little notebook paper with the illustration, Adobe stock. I didn't have to hand make that. That was Adobe stock, so that was done like that.
Have you ever seen a movie poster and recognized Adobe stock assets? I'm like, that's Adobe stock there.
Yes, but we're probably the only ones.
Yeah.
And again, for design pitches, you have to come up with a bunch of different ideas, right? So this is just a little design concepts for Agent 47. So as you said, you have to be flexible, right? Let's see what else I have to show you. Blank screen. Okay, so this is a job Jesus and I worked together on, and he did all the extensions for, and it was for FBI. And again, what y'all see publicly is so small, but we have to build out so big. And this is where generative fill with AI will, once it's legal to use for business, will 100% be a game changer. 100%. And then CSI, we had to do comping for that. And sometimes changing the comp is just changing sizing. But I'm going to go back for a second. Yeah. Sometimes changing that size, you think, oh, what's the big deal? And it's like, no, you have to recreate legs sometimes or have different assets or elements available to you. So it's really important to know. Again, oh my heavens, I'm sorry. I have a little visceral reaction to the pain some of these jobs are. Like this looks like nothing, right? It's just a little file with that. Extension had to all be hand built and stitched because AI didn't exist back then. So now it would be a whole different, it would be a button eventually. Yeah. So again, we're talking about future use of AI with this modular workflow.
But it could definitely be used for inspiration at the moment.
100%, 100% good.
Unfortunately, we can't show, but we've been using a lot of AI generated images for a current project we're working on.
Yeah, this is really handy. And in fact, so we just finished a very exciting project. Again, we can't show it because we're under NDA, but we used AI to generate backgrounds and get inspiration. And then once it gets signed off on, then we can recompile it from scratch. But at least we can get the idea out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, here you go. I remember this one
Yes.
too.
So this one's a great shot. We're going to... yeah, by the way, I'm sorry, you just got a plug. Marco Blanco, you 100% should be using Jesus for extensions because he is brilliant at this. So this was the first big extension job where I really lost my mind about what you could do. So we were doing comping for CSI, and I'm going to, in just a minute, I'm going to pass it to Jesus. But we had to come up with these big room extensions. So literally the shot were this big. I mean, teeny tiny little pieces. And then we had this whole issue about day for night. So we had to do a lab image, and then it was like, oh, can you do a nighttime one too? So I'm doing all the retouching on people and masking them out and their head strips and spending hours and hours. But because we collaborate, I can throw this to Jesus and say, hey, dude, can you do this part of the job? And you guys, especially Marco, check this out. There is an amazing technique he did using layer comps.
Oh, right.
It's amazeballs and smart objects. So this is definitely a kind of, well, it's 100% an advanced tip he's about to show you, but boom.
Yeah, so I never showed this in my YouTube channel because, again, I think it might be too advanced for like a tutorial on YouTube. But since this is professional workflows in the real world, why don't we show
100%.
So just before we get to that, I did want to show because I do have the background file for the project we did with the CSI. So basically, let me show you guys just look at how we have to name the layers. I don't know if we talked about, Lisa, but we talked about every layer has to not only be named, but we have to apply the blending mode to the layer name and also apply the opacity or add the opacity to the layer name in case I hand the file over to Lisa or someone else and they change the blending mode or opacity and things don't look right. We can reference that in. So everything is named, everything is organized, but somewhere in here, you'll see the original file, we got from the studio, and I don't even know where it is. Probably way here at the bottom. There it is.
Oh, yeah, you've got to show this.
We got that. That's what we got. And they said, can you fill out the rest? And I was like, sure, we can definitely do that. And I mean, there's a million and one techniques that I use, but some of the primary ones I wanted to call out was the importance of using Adobe stock assets for this. Yes. Because, for example, these doors were doors that I just found on Adobe stock on a completely different image. And, it creates the illusion that that's actually a complete wall. And all I really did was go into Adobe stock. I did spend some time trying to figure out, what type of door a building like that would have. But I found these doors that belong to this lab here, and
so good.
And I just masked them out, added the details back in, converted it to a smart object, and used it for the doors on the side. Obviously some distortion with I use a lot of perspective lines, make sure the perspective is right, get all that working. The point is that this took a long time to do an extension. I wasn't planning on doing this, Lisa, but just for fun, let's see how GenFill what GenFill will do in this case.
This is going to be really interesting because it's very, very complicated. So again, we're talking about stuff that's coming in the future, not what you can use now. And while we're waiting for GenFill to work, what I want to share is why Jesus was so brilliant about this is he wasn't hamstrung from that notion of, I have to take something that, holy shit. Look at that. Sorry, bleep. Here's the thing. Wow. Oh my God. I'm out of a job. You're really fired.
Yeah.
No, I'm totally kidding. But here's the thing. What Jesus brings to the party is he's not stuck with the photo we had. He knows to look outside the box, right?
Yeah. So
I still like yours better. You're
thank
still
you.
hired.
I appreciate that. But usually, what happens is I'll send this file back over to Lisa. And Lisa will, do her magic, and this is, JR extensions. This is the extension I created. And then this folder is Lisa adjustments. So Lisa comes in there. Oops, the layers I disabled. I'm sorry. But you come in there and you do more adjustments to to what I had so that it works for whatever the design is or whatever we're trying to accomplish at the time.
Yeah, let's talk about this for just a second. Even though, I mean, obviously we're talking about AI and stuff. Could you turn that on and off again just for a couple times?
Sure.
This is an interesting thing about when you're talking with someone creatively about work. So Jesus did a beautiful job. Hands down for that image, it was gorgeous. But I have to have something read for different reasons. I know there's type that's going to go in there. There's people that are going there. He doesn't know where the people are. And so it's interesting when you collaborate. And one of the things I appreciate about collaboration, I'd like to enforce this, is don't get offended.
Right.
The greatest pleasure I have with working with Jesus is I can change this file, and he doesn't think I'm insulting him in any way, shape, or form. And so it's such a pleasure to work with someone who's fresh. And again, I'm going to reiterate how cool he is about thinking outside the box. Like I would have, if you looked at this image, I would have been cloning out that floor and maybe taking that cabinet and trying to make a new one. And he's like, no, go to Adobe stock and get a whole new room.
Yeah. So so there's like maybe, I don't know, 7, 8 Adobe stock images, including the floor right here. This is Adobe stock. This is Adobe stock. This back here is Adobe stock. So a lot of things in here are Adobe stock. And some things I just like literally made from shapes. For example, the light fixture, I think this part here was just a vector, just a, solid blue box essentially.
Yeah.
But, you can definitely find a lot of things in Adobe stock. And now with GenFill, like if I could use GenFill commercially, I probably wouldn't generate the entire room with GenFill, but I would probably do pieces, and then find, for example, maybe the beakers and the scientific equipment here. Absolutely. Maybe I would use GenFill for that, and maybe find like a variation that work well, but then build around it. So not just be stuck with a one-click solution, but include GenFill as another tool in my tool belt.
Absolutely. So Jesus said something really important about the one-click solution, not just doing one click. And that's important to not expect, because I feel like sometimes folks are using generative fill and they think, oh, it didn't work, put it away. And it's like, no, use it where you can use it, right?
Right,
and
absolutely.
then I know in the chat we have a bunch of people who actually are working professionals in our industry.
Yeah.
And what I would suggest, gang, for those who I can see in there, start using this now on the side while you're working.
Right.
Because this way you'll know. So Jesus and I, every job we have that we're doing together now, we do a GenFill and we go, oh, that's interesting. I hope it gets better than that stuff. And then we have to go and hand build it because that's all we can do legally. But when the floodgates get opened, hopefully soon, we'll be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you guys are here, so you're getting prepared too because you're paying attention.
I think we should move over to this file just to briefly mention one thing. So this is basically a file that I would typically get from Lisa, and is literally, this is the canvas, and this is the image she has from the studio, and then she'll say, fill out the rest. And again, just for fun, maybe we can see what GenFill does here. But
also, did you want to show the commenting?
Yes,
oh,
yes.
Okay.
I was hoping to, I don't know if it's going to work, but while it's doing that, I can go into the comments section here, and then usually Lisa will say something like, hey, honey, and this is usually what Lisa says, hey, honey, for everything. Even when I call her, hey, honey, can you build out the room day and night? And if I don't know what she means, or if I have a question, I will call you back or text you or reply through here, depending on how I got the message, to then do this. So this is it did a really good job, actually.
Wow.
But if you look at the file size dimensions, and actually this is not I actually scaled this file down 50%, just so we can work on it now. But the original file for this project is twice as large. So, GenFill definitely wouldn't be able to get all the good details yet, just because it doesn't have that type of resolution yet. And there's issues, here that wouldn't work. But overall, it did a really good job.
Well, again, and we're talking future use, correct?
Yeah.
So, again, I would suggest everybody, as you're working, try it out so that you're ready. And then, again, knowing when to parcel it out. You said in partial areas. Someone asked in the chat about how you can use generative fill to make a pattern seamless. And actually, when I do GenFill, I type in seamless pattern. So when you're making your GenFill prompt, type in seamless pattern.
Right.
Mika, I did have a seamless paddle on skin just yesterday. It did make it.
Cool. So this is like the finished version, and we're going to go through it, and I'm going to show you a couple techniques that I use. But this is the finished version after doing it all by hand, no GenFill. And for this particular project, if I remember correctly, Lisa, we pitched this like a year ago now or something like that. Yeah. And we were working on different comms comps for CSI Vegas, and actually this little box here is basically the poster.
Yeah.
But we needed to build out everything else and characters and stuff like that. Talent was going to go in this area. But the point is that we still needed this whole giant picture for different things. And one of the ththings I thought about doing is to make things easier to pitch and to work with. I thought, well, why can't we use layer comps for the different designs? And what we mean by day and night is this is a daytime photo, and this is obviously Las Vegas. So this is a photo of Las Vegas in the daytime, and I have different options here. I have day 2, and I can go to day 1. Notice,
okay, time out.
Yeah.
Marco, pay attention. And these are layer comps.
Yeah.
So genius. This is absolutely genius.
Yeah. So now we have a different image here because we were playing around with different images to see what the client would like, but then they also wanted to see some nighttime shots. So then I have night 2. Where am I in day 1? Yeah. So I got to go into night 1 to compare. So night 1. So now that's a nighttime scene of exactly the same background, and I have a night 2 as well. So some of you might be wondering, well, how do you Photoshop a night to a day scene and make it look realistic? Well, it's very, very difficult, and I definitely didn't want to spend the time. Notice it is exactly the same angle, the same exact everything. And I tried looking at Adobe stock for images that were shot at the same angle but in different times of day in Vegas, and it was very difficult. Couldn't figure it out. So then I thought, oh, well, why don't I use Adobe stock to look for a time-lapse video where it's day to night in Vegas, and I found the video and we use that. And so let me show you what I mean by that. We're gonna use a different video, but if you go into Adobe stock, and I'm gonna explain it in case you're not familiar with it, so let me just go to the beginning. If you go to stock.adobe.com, you'll go to this page here, and you can type anything you want in the search box. If you go into the free section, obviously for our client, we used an actual file that we could license, but for the example, we're going to use a free one, and this will help you play around with different images or videos, whatever you want. But under the free section, I just typed in time-lapse, and I found a time-lapse of Las Vegas. And by the way, one thing you should do is also click on the video option here on the left. When you click on video, you only get videos. Yeah. So I just found a video that had a time-lapse that, was something that could work for that image. So in this case, I don't know, I'm just looking for something that might...
And I'm just going to say, this is genius. This is Jesus's ability to think outside the box. Get a video. Get a video that does a time lapse of so nothing moves. The city is exactly in the exact same position.
Yeah.
Genius.
So we'll use this one. So, since it's free, I can just license it. And this will only take a couple seconds, I hope. The internet's pretty fast here in the studio, so it shouldn't be an issue. But I'm just going to download this video. It's in an MOB file, so it'll open in just a second. And actually what I'll do is I'm not going to open it up with that. I think I can open it up with Photoshop. If it should open up in just a second. If not,
there we go.
There we go. So now I can come in here and just find, the 2 shots that I want for my scene. So we'll say this is the daytime. So I can just copy that, and then I'll paste it into my working document for now. And then I'll find the nighttime photo, whatever I think looks good. We'll say this one's good. I could copy that and paste it here. So now I have the same buildings with light and no light. And I can obviously adjust it to match my scene better. But that's basically what I did in this project. I'm going to open up the Smart Object so that you can see the actual files I created.
And then while he's doing this, let me just tell you how we used to do that. We would take the daytime shot, make it day for night, make it dark, and then hand put in the lights.
Right.
Oh my heavens.
And there's a question in the chat, could I explain what layer comps are? I can definitely do that. But what I wanted to show here is how all these layers here is what creates the final composite that you saw. And by the way, the original image was, as you guys saw, just that. So I had to build out the rest, to make it look realistic. And then I used the different things to again make it look realistic. I had to do all that by hand, no gen fill, and then find the images I used as I showed you guys. I showed 2 different videos, of course, and just composite those videos in there, and then use layer comps to selectively show layers. And let me show you what I mean by that actually, because I understand that the layer comp process might be a little confusing. So to make it super, super easy, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a copy of this entire thing, and I'm going to open it up in a new document. That way it's easier to understand.
Yeah.
So I'm going to create a new document and paste it there. So now I just have one layer that has transparent windows, nothing in those windows, right? And I'm just going to close this document so that it's not confusing anyone. And then I'll go back to this image here and I'll copy the night scene and I'll paste it here. So I'll paste it below there and, just place it into position. This is probably not going to be the best composite you've ever seen.
Well,
but
it's Hawaii meets Vegas.
Right, but I think you'll get the idea. So here we go. There it is, and then I'll get the day one. Did I not? Okay, whatever. I'll just find another image. So I'll go into timeline here, and I'll find a daytime shot, and I'll just copy that, and I'll paste that one here. And I should have, to be frank with you, I should have done them both at the same time so that they were the same size.
Can you do Command-Shift-T?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to...
No, I mean, transform again.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely... Okay, so yeah, Lisa's completely right about that.
Jesus and I like to have this battle of how to... You still owe me $100.
Yeah, I already...
Yeah, we like to bet on the best Photoshop technique. So Command-Shift-T will do the last transform you just did.
Yep. And actually, yeah, Lisa just kind of said it a little quickly there, but the last time she was over at my house, we were having dinner, and we had a bet about a Photoshop question, and I was so certain that I knew the answer to it. So I said, I bet you $100, and I was wrong. So I owe her $100. But the point is now we have these layers, right? And it's always a good idea to name your layers, so I can call this one day.
And in fact, name it with the stock shot you got it from for licensing.
Definitely. This is day, this is night. This is night.
And while you're doing this, I learned this yesterday. He never told me he did it this way.
Oh, right.
I was like today years old when I learned this trick. It's brilliant. The video is brilliant.
So to answer the question, what is a layer comp? So if you go into Window, Layer Comps, you'll get this really crazy window here. And if you click on the New button, you can create a new layer comp. It basically allows you to pick between different properties that you have set in the Layers panel, including visibility, position, layer styles, and what would happen in this case is I would just disable the night group and only leave the day group enabled, right? And actually I need one more just to make this a little more realistic. A color lookup adjustment layer, and I'm going to clip this to the layer below, and I wanted to delete that layer mask. Clip it to the layer below and just make it night from day or something. There we go. Yeah, we'll say that that's a nighttime image. And again, this is not the best composite in the world. But so then I have two layers that make up the daytime composite, right? So this is a daytime composite. So then I can go into my layer comps here. That's not my layer comps. Where are they? I forgot what the icon looks like. There it is, that one. I can go into my layer comps here, click on the new icon, and then just call this one day, not night, day, because this is what my daytime scene will look like. I don't have to worry about any of the other properties. The only property I'm really concerned about is the visibility, meaning which layers are active and which layers are disabled. So this is great. So I'll press OK. Now I gotta do my daytime shot. So I can enable this layer for the coloring of the room, and then the nighttime shot, there it is. Do a new layer comp, and I can call this one night.
Right.
I'll press OK. Now for my layers comp, when I click on these guys, those layers will disable and enable to show the corresponding layers that make up that scene. Now I can take all of these layers, select them all by holding Shift.
This is important.
Yeah, very important. Clicking, holding Shift.
All of them.
Yeah, select all layers. Right-click and select Convert to Smart Object. Now, because we use layer comps in this Smart Object, if you want to deselect all layer, something's going on.
The demo gods.
Yeah, the demo gods.
Jesus is sorting that out. One thing I want to let you know, for those of you who work in an open workflow, meaning you have other people who work in your studio, in your office, if you're going to use layer comps, you have to make sure you explain to them how layer comps work, because it's actually kind of unknown for most people. They're super, super handy. And you have to make sure that no one deletes any of the objects out of the smart object, because every layer has to be present inside the smart object or the layer comp won't work.
Right, and actually there was some boo-boo. The layer comps didn't save. They should have saved. Usually when you convert layers into a smart object, the layer comps should save. They didn't, so I'm just going to do it super fast again. But you guys already saw what I did. I had my comp here with the daytime image, so I can just click on New and just call this one Day, and then enable these guys, and then enable those other guys and call this one Night, press OK, and now when I save, they should show up on on the smart object. So let me close that, save it. There we go. So now this is a smart object. So everything I did is inside of that smart object, but in the properties panel, you'll now get this drop down.
This is important.
And then you can just select day, and now it shows the daytime images, and I can select night, and it shows the daytime images. So now Lisa can go in and work on these comps and switch really quickly between day and night, and it's all in one file. And we don't have to, spend a lot of time with, having creating multiple files, multiple variations. It's all contained in one file, and it's really easy to work with because you can just now go into daytime, nighttime, whatever you need.
Isn't that genius? And again, I'm going to stress for those of you in an open workflow where you work with other people, I would have a text layer inside the comp that explains that the layer comps are active, and that's how you switch. So, because especially if you're supporting different designers, because what will happen for these jobs is these will pass through multiple designers' hands and sometimes multiple agencies. So just be super, super careful with this.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think we're ready to move on.
Awesome. So if you want to come back to my board for a minute, that would be awesome.
Sure.
Thank you very much. So this ended up being the one they did pick. So Jesus's brilliant extension work. Thank you very much.
Well, that one worked, but they didn't like this one.
No, they didn't. But the key is we had to do all that design stuff, and you did it so quickly.
And how many comps do you think per project we do when we pitch?
Oh my God. So the last pitch we did last week, we did for round 1, 25 comps.
25, yeah. So it's 25 different posters. So you definitely have to be able to.
The commenting, you showed that already.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, you have to be able to switch, not switch, but create multiple pieces really, really quickly. So it helps if you build things with that in mind rather than having to start from scratch on the next example.
Yes, absolutely. So again, this is pro work level stuff and really important. So I just want to talk about the generative fill because I'm not sure out in the universe how many people know how sophisticated it is. So I'd like to show for a second bad workflow or old. I shouldn't say bad. It's just the way it was.
Traditional.
So, traditional. That is so much more appropriate to say traditional. So the traditional way, or where I would be without generative fill, is my first attempt would be to do a fill, a content aware fill, right? So fill, content aware, and I've selected the two sides. It's probably hard to see. Well, okay, step and repeat for days. Look at all these step and repeats. So what I would end up doing historically is I would clone out, the step and repeats. So that's no bueno for me anymore. So generative fill, I'm going to have a coughing fit in just a second. All you have to do with generative fill is select your area, hit generate with nothing in it. No comment, no words, and wait till you see how sophisticated this is. So again, right now for extensions, we have to do it the old-fashioned way or the traditional way. But from now on, what it's going to be, look what it did. It gave new varieties of rocks, and you get 3 variations always. And I mean, it's amazeballs, right?
It's crazy.
Right.
And what I like better about this feature is that, for example, if on the right side you wanted to take control and tell Photoshop what to do, you could. If you select just the right side and type something like palm trees or something, then if you just make a selection like on the right side of the yeah.
So what I've been doing, I don't know if you're going to say this, but I also sometimes I like one gen fill versus the other, and I'll mask them in, so I'll have 2 gen fills.
Right, exactly.
So I can do it.
Yeah. And the other thing I was going to say is if you make a selection like on one side, you can type in a keyword and then it'll generate that instead of letting Photoshop decide what to put in there, if that makes any sense.
100%. So again, I do a lot of mom and pop advertising, smaller clients, not big name studio stuff. And look what a game changer is. So imagine, and I actually already did this job before, well, I couldn't use it anyway, before GenFill existed. Sorry, my mouse got away from me. I'm doing this on a trackpad, if you can imagine. And again, if I just hit GenFill, now I'm doing something interesting. I usually do one side, then the other. This time, just for this demo, I'm going to do both sides at the same time. Normally, I do just the top, and then I do just the bottom. But let's see. Let's do an experiment.
I think it's going to do a good job no matter what.
Yeah, and so for advertising that doesn't have high budget, I mean, these are client direct pieces. Beautiful.
There you go. Look at that.
Beautiful. What I liked about this for me, and again, Tomasz might, or some of the AI people might have more information. The fact that the bottom is all obfuscated and blurred is perfect for type. Perfect. So look how great that is. And then let me show you the other one that it did such an amazeballs job on. Look at this water. So again, bottom. So what I like about, and I wonder if you feel the same, that I feel like the fill is so sophisticated. I mean, really sophisticated imaging it's doing.
Well, it's so good at catching reflections, shadows, everything that makes something look realistic. It figures it out. It's incredible.
Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah.
So mind you, keep in mind the kind of compositions I'm working on are product jobs, meaning there's type. I need to have blank space for type. Packaging, toy packaging. Donna Whitland was in the chat earlier. She's a toy package designer. This is going to be a big game changer for her and something I would suggest 100% that she puts into her workflow. Yeah, I'm curious out there what kind of workflow you guys have, because I mean, obviously we're talking about entertainment, which is very specific, but can you guys imagine look at that, look at those trees. I mean, here, let me move the prompt. I do find that prompt moving a little annoying, but whatever. Look at this. Amazeballs.
They look really,
right?
really good.
And do you need more room for type? Do you need copy lines in the upper left-hand corner or not? I mean, it's pretty remarkable what you can do, right? All right. And if you guys have questions, we're here to answer what we can.
Let us know in the chat.
All right, let me see what's next. Let's check out in our list here of showing. Oh, this is a good one.
Oh, Women of Wrestling, yes.
We work on some fine projects here at Jesus and Lisa's auto shop of building.
Yeah,
so,
that was an interesting one.
Yes, this was an interesting build. And hey, Donna, Donna's in the chat. Yeah, this is going to be so great for her. So, wow, Women of Wrestling. And then this is what we had to build. So if you can imagine the kind of file extension, I think Jesus has the file. Do you have this file to show? Or did you not?
I have the assets to show.
The assets.
Yeah.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about where you get your assets, because again, this is a hard thing to find. Can you generate rope and have it be in the right position? Probably not, but you can probably get Adobe stock to be in the right position, or maybe get a piece of rope that you can then move or transfer. You can definitely do fire. And Nate's asking, is there a way to lock the prompt? And I believe there is not, but it should go back to wherever you were. So where I put it up here, it should stay up here. So if that's what you mean by locking the prompt, then yes. So shall we pass it to you?
Yeah, and actually I do have the finished file of that one. Again, everything organized, everything named with the blending mode, opacity, everything is to be super, super tight. And I think if I go in here somewhere, this is literally hundreds and hundreds of layers. And sometimes it's very difficult to figure out exactly what the original image was. But anyway, so the original image was super tiny. It was definitely not, like an actual ring. It was just like you couldn't see any of the...
Well, they saw that, the one that I showed you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so Lisa mentioned, hey, I need you to build these ropes that are on fire. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? Well, again, our good friends at Adobe Stock, and I'll zoom in so they can see some of that detail in these ropes. But like I mentioned, our good friends at Adobe Stock are, oh, look at this. My Creative Cloud is not connecting. I'll try connecting. If not, I can still...
The demo gods like to throw a little...
No worries. Well, here, I'll show people what they... Oh, there we go. It's back up. So I went in there and I started looking for the files that I used to create this. And basically... yeah, Lisa, you wanted to...
No, you know what? Could you just move your bar up?
Yep.
So in the chat, who said it? Because I'm so happy that... Hurry up and wait. Thank you so much. I'm here today to learn. If you tap the 3 bars on the right, this one?
Yep.
You can pin the prompt.
Yeah.
Pin the prompt bar. This is what I love about Adobe Live and this collaborative thing.
Yeah.
Because how many of you guys are at home working alone and you don't know, you're trying to find something
Everything.
and someone just like, hurry up and wait, just puts a little comment and says, hey, I just saved you a bunch of time.
It's right here, pin bar position.
Thank you.
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah, anyway, so this is the image that I found on Adobe Stock, and I don't remember specifically which rope I use, but I use, we'll just say that I use this rope, and I thought, okay, so now I have to repeat this a million times.
Right.
So I mean, there's so many ways that you can do that, but after you have your selection, one of the things, and I actually learned this from you many years ago, Lisa, is I like doing the filter other minimum to reduce the mask so it contracts so you don't have those white edges. We'll just do 2 pixels to play it safe for now. By the way, pro tip, switch it to squareness because, switch it to roundness.
I was going to say, nah.
Roundness. Because squareness only gives you whole numbers, so like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pixels. Roundness gives you decimal points. So you can do 1.6 or 7 pixel contractions and press OK, and that contracts the mask. And actually, so you can visually see what's going on. That's the mask.
So great.
And by the way,
because you know when you mask, you get that little halo of white, and you don't have to try to hand move it out. This is an automatic way of doing it.
That's right. If you go into filter, other, and minimum, you can actually see what's going on here with the actual mask. It'll contract it. Of course, there you go. You can see the difference right there. That's 29 pixels. I'll go more extreme. See that? So now it's contracting it by 223.7 pixels. So that's what it's doing to the mask, is contracting it. Some people ask me if this is the same thing as having a selection and going into select, modify, and contract. And the answer is no for 2 reasons. Number 1 is this is also only whole numbers. And number 2, this is applying it to a selection, not a mask.
Right.
So 2 differences. Anyway, so now that I had my rope, what I needed to do was figure out, all right, how do I make it seem like this thing is on fire? So one of the things that I found was this texture. It was lava, just hot lava. I thought, what looks like it's burning?
Right.
And
this was genius.
Yeah. So I just basically created a clipping mask. So a clipping mask makes it so that the layer below controls the visibility of the layer on top. And then I thought, okay, well, that looks like a really hot rope. This is cool. And then I used blend diff and using the underlying layers, just kind of like, bring out just a little bit of that detail, not too much, just a tiny little bit. And then mask the whole thing out. Hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and click on the layer mask icon to make a black mask. And then very, very carefully with a brush, and I forgot what brush I used, but it was like like one of those scatter brushes.
Yeah.
I just, started revealing the ropes, like literally piece by piece, like so. And then I use another stock asset like this one, dragged it on top of the rope, and changed the blending mode to screen, reduce the canvas, the image size, and then just kind of did
So
that. Good. Then I used a layer style to kind of create the edge there. So I just went and used a bevel and emboss and, just started messing with the image until I got a nice edge. And when you're done, you get something that looks like this. The one thing I will say, Lisa, is that I did it all like by hand. So it's not like I kept repeating it because I didn't want a repeating pattern.
Right.
So I literally went in and drew it all out. See how it just kind of starts with a little burn in there and then more and then less and all that. So I did it all by hand, meaning no repeating patterns, including the flames. But I just repeated that process a million times.
And that's important because your eye will see a repeating pattern. But let's talk a little bit about a comp versus a finish. So if you're trying to pitch an idea to a client, you do it automatically probably because it's fast. And then when the client says, yay, we love this, then you do it by hand.
Exactly.
But still, it's really great. I want to reiterate something. So first of all, he's using stock to find his elements, which is great. Eventually, you're going to be able to do generative fill and probably do flames along a line and a rope. Eventually, you definitely will.
Yeah.
You also used layer styles, which I don't think folks are using so much. Layer styles are a great hidden tip, and blend sliders.
Yeah.
And then I think on your YouTube channel, you have a bunch of these. Like if someone's wondering about blend sliders, Jesus has an amazing tutorial on blend sliders on his Photoshop training channel. You can look it up and get more information.
That's right. And the other thing to just remember that we did with this was because I see it here, we used a dust brush to create the illusion of fog and smoke and all that. So there was a lot of hand painting to create a lot of the smoke that is seen around the ring.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully that's helpful to know some of these techniques. And again, we kind of passed it really quickly, but that commenting, like me commenting on a file through Creative Cloud, for those of you, once again, in an open workflow, it is an amazing process. Instead of sending everything via email and text that actually inside the Creative Cloud, you can use commenting, and hopefully more and more studios will start using this, and clients are getting more on board. And it is secure, so images are protected. So that's cool. If you can come back to my screen again, I just want to take a minute and kind of recap a second about some options. I'm sorry, my graphic is blocking the head a little bit, but find the right Adobe tool for the job. So I feel like there's this desire to have, as we called, one-click options and one, it's one thing and that's it. No. Like, I need an elm tree. Well, where do I get the elm tree? Is the Photoshop render going to be the best elm tree? Or perhaps is Adobe stock going to be the best render? Or is it going to be Photoshop AI Gen Fill? And right now, I got to tell you, it's somewhere between Adobe stock and render for me in terms of flexibility. But the AI is going to get there. And I feel like, especially y'all who are tuned in, the really great thing about this is you're staying on top of the curve. This is coming. Is it perfect yet? No, 100% no, but it's coming. And you don't want to be caught behind the 8 ball, as you were, right? And so it's a great way to think about where to get assets. So I mentioned with Tomasz about how to create assets. So GenFill assets, you can do things like make a drawing and say, hey, I want some kind of cloud. And I typed in here for the prompt, I just typed in puffy cloud on black. And then you can see the little prompt in the bottom. You can see I got big fat ones and then I got a little one. So someone in the chat earlier was talking about assets and seamless assets. And yes, you can make these assets inside GenFill and start saving them. Jesus had a great idea. Do you remember he said the smoke and fire on the mat for the wrestling? You could take this cloud and make a dust brush out of this cloud and then use it to make textures, right? So again, I'm trying to, I do GenFill very minimally. A lot of folks you'll see, they'll do these big, wow, full images. I'm like, no, how can GenFill be a little assist for me? Because I feel like I have more control and my clients have more control.
And for the type of work that we do, we need that control. Because if a GenFill can generate a beautiful image, but if a client says, move this tree to the left, and if it's all just one image, you just can't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, and I hope that I'm not speaking out of turn here, but that job, we had a big job we just did in the last few weeks, and the client did all their comping in Midjourney to send us samples. They had no control.
Right.
No control over what they were doing. And it was all illegally sourced, so they couldn't use it. And it was like, well, okay, we can rebuild this, but it's not going to look like this. And you just have to be careful with what you produce. So again, make a dust brush with this. Do we have a second to talk about Russell before we do this?
We should do that now, yeah.
So I want to let you know that our dear friend Russell Brown at Adobe, what is Russell's title? He is the Senior Principal Designer at Adobe. He is going to be releasing either today, tomorrow, or this weekend, these generative fill actions, which is super groovy cool. He's got a watercolor, an oil painting, a pencil sketch, and a cartoon vector. And you can try it out and see if it'll work for your job. But more importantly than it necessarily working for your job, what it will help you do is learn how GenFill works. It is a super complicated action, and that's the best part of it. So when you run the action, just have your history panel open and look at it and see what it's doing. You can open up the action and see what it has embedded, and it's an amazing way to learn GenFill. So once again, let me repeat myself, where you're going to find it is you're going to go find Dr. Brown on either Instagram or on Facebook. And I should text him and make sure he knows I announced this. It should be out in the next few days. And Russell is doing an amazing job working on AI and really pushing the envelope and seeing what it can do, because it's all new for all of us, isn't it? And so make sure you check that out as soon as you can.
Yeah, check them out.
Should we do the share?
Let's do the share.
All right.
If you don't mind switching over
back
my
to
screen,
Jesus.
please, Paco. Thank you. So we talked about it earlier that, we spend countless of hours creating all this work, and a lot of times we don't. I just recently started sharing my work I've done. I think I've only shared 2 projects I've done with the Discovery Channel, actually. But one of the tools that's made it easier to share content is Adobe Express, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you guys about. If you just click on this little plus icon, you can just select from any of these templates, and I selected the Instagram square, so there it is. And I can actually upload images. So I'm going to upload an image from a project that Lisa, you and I worked on together. But by the time it was done, the image looked nothing like the last time I saw it. By the way, fun fact, you see that little torch there? I use the same technique as I did on the ropes. Actually, the same Adobe stock assets,
Right?
believe it or not.
Yeah.
So
Shout out to Dennis Dunbar who picked up the end of this job.
Yeah,
This was a bear.
I think that out of everything I did in that original pass, maybe just probably that.
No, all the spikes were yours. All
the spikes,
stakes
yeah,
and stuff. Yeah.
So there was a couple things that because as you mentioned, there's a lot of different
And the
passes
wreath?
and that was a good friend Yvonne helped out too. So there were so many different passes, and I think maybe like 10% of what I did ended up in the final piece, but whatever. It is what it is, and Dennis Dunbert also helped out a lot. But the point is that if I wanted to share this project on Instagram, I can use this tool. It has a template already there for me. Another great advantage recently with the Adobe Express beta is that under your stuff, you have access to your library. So for example,
This is great. This is great. Yeah.
you can have a logo for like your client or whatever, and then you can just drop it in there. And is it gonna drop it in there? Oh, there you go. Dropped it in twice. I'll delete one, but there it is. Showtime, and I can scale this and just move it into position so that it looks good in that format. And if I want to now add maybe like a page, but this page I can resize it so that it is an Instagram story. And actually, I should have not done that. I should have done something different. Let me go ahead and under add, instead of adding a page, you can duplicate page.
Yeah.
That's what I should have done. So I can keep the same assets. Then I can resize this and select an Instagram story, and it should resize this for us. There it is. And I can just make this a little bit larger, put it into position, and I can...
Can you guys imagine how many of you are trying to push out your portfolio? Meanwhile, you're working, you got to go to the gym, you got to feed your dog, you got to do whatever. Adobe Express is such a great asset to quickly get out because you got to keep your work going. You got to be fresh in front of eyes. And look how amazing this is, because how many different formats are there now? Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn,
TikTok, YouTube, whatever you want. So let's just assume that now that you have, you can spend some time creating different sizes and aspect ratios for different platforms, but let's just assume that we're ready, we're done, and all we have to do now is click on the share button and select the platform. So I'll select Instagram, for example, and I can add my caption here, and I can say something like, check out our work with Showtime or whatever, Showtime, exclamation mark, and there it is. If I click on the Publish Now button, by the way, Adobe Express can connect to your social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and maybe I'm forgetting another one.
Yeah.
But the point is, actually, here you go. These are the platforms that it connects with. So I can see a preview. I can click on the preview box, and this is what it would look on Instagram. Here's
Isn't that fantastic?
Account.
Yeah.
The video or the image, how it's going to look like, and then the description. Also, another cool thing with Adobe Express is the option for the first comment on Instagram could be yours. So you can add additional content like hashtags or anything else you want. So the first comment on the post will be your comment, and you can enter that in the box here. Unfortunately, that does not show on the preview, but it is the first comment on that particular post, and I can click on Publish Now, and it will post this onto my Instagram account.
Yeah, I think this is really important, and I'm sorry, I can't remember if we talked about this. The thing about Adobe, and as a user, like I'm a 35-year user of Photoshop, and I got so hamstrung into just using Photoshop, and it was kind of hard for my brain to branch out to other Adobe products, and they're all linked. So it's so easy. So I really invite you, especially you longtime users, check out Adobe Express. It's absolutely amazeballs. There's so many things you can do in there. And self-promotion is really important. As he was calling me out, I don't post anything. And because it's hard. I have to tell you, I'm going to date myself completely. To me, I would have had to put it in Quark Express and actually do a layout and then InDesign or wait, what? And
like,
add
what
type.
Is that?
So seriously, give this a try. It is so easy. And you can do it on your phone.
Yeah, anywhere.
You can do it on your phone.
Laptop, anywhere. Well, Lisa, it's been It's been an amazing time.
Yep.
Everybody, thank you so much for being in the chat. Really appreciate everybody's support. Christopher, Marco, Micah, Henrik, Nate, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure being here. A pleasure being here with you, Lisa.
You as well. I think
Awesome.
Marco's going to call you for a job.
Sounds good.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. You guys are great. Keep learning. Keep sticking in with this Gen AI. I know it's a lot, but
And
you'll
stay
get
tuned
it.
for the next Adobe Live. Thank you so
Yes.
much, everybody.
Thanks
Talk
for
to you
having
soon.
us.
Bye.